If you are deciding between Tampa, Miami, and Jacksonville based purely on ocean freight rates, you are almost certainly asking the wrong question, because the cheapest ocean port on paper is very rarely the cheapest port once your container actually hits land. Listen until the end to learn 4 questions to ask for clarity when choosing an ocean port. What really matters is total landed cost. And total landed cost is shaped far more by what happens after the vessel docks than by the ocean rate itself. Landed cost includes inland drayage distance, warehouse availability, labor pricing, how much delay the operation can absorb, and how forgiving the system is when something does not go exactly as planned. Most cost overruns tied to ocean port choice never show up on the ocean invoice. They show up when the warehouse you assumed had capacity does not. They show up when a container waits for a truck longer than expected. They show up when labor is available, but only at surge pricing. And they show up when a small delay creates a chain reaction that turns into detention, rework, or missed delivery windows. One of the most common mistakes we see is choosing a port before clearly understanding 2 things: where the freight actually needs to go and what kind of handling it requires once it gets there. Port efficiency matters, but in practice, warehouse access within 30 to 60 minutes of the port matters more. So let's walk through Tampa, Miami, and Jacksonville the way operators actually experience them, not from a rate sheet, but from the dock floor. Let's start with Tampa. Tampa can be one of the most cost-effective ports in Florida when it is aligned with the shipment's requirements. Tampa Port works particularly well for freight moving into Central Florida. It performs well for short-term warehousing, transloads, project freight, and recovery situations where flexibility matters more than scale. Another advantage is that Tampa does not live under constant congestion pressure the way South Florida does. That often allows for smoother coordination between port, truck, and warehouse, assuming planning is done ahead of time. But here is the nuance that often gets missed. Tampa is less forgiving when planning is weak. Congestion does happen, weather disruptions happen, labor constraints happen, and when they do, Tampa has a smaller labor pool and fewer overflow options than larger ports. If warehousing is not secured in advance, or if special equipment needs are discovered after the container arrives, costs escalate quickly. So while shipping to Tampa Port can save money, when things go wrong, it exposes lack of planning faster than larger ports that can absorb mistakes more easily. Now let's talk about Miami. Miami is built for scale. It has massive infrastructure, a deep labor pool, and the ability to process very high volumes of repeat freight. For large importers, retail distribution, and time-sensitive SKUs, Miami often makes operational sense, even when it is not the lowest cost option on paper. However, labor availability does not automatically mean labor affordability. During peak periods, Miami pricing reflects demand. Drayage wait times increase, warehousing capacity tightens, and labor premiums become part of the equation, not the exception. Miami tends to work best for shippers with high volumes because the port variability is smoothed out with the volume. Predictable flows, consistent and frequent shipping schedules, and established warehouse relationships help offset the inherent congestion risk in Miami. For one-off shipments or short-term projects without that infrastructure already in place, Miami can become expensive very quickly. Now let's look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville has earned its reputation for operational consistency. It offers steady port operations and strong trucking lanes into the southeast United States. For freight moving into Georgia, the Carolinas, or broader regional distribution, Jacksonville can be a very efficient choice. Jacksonville also benefits from solid rail connectivity, but that advantage only applies if your distribution model actually uses intermodal transportation. Many short-term or project-based shipments never touch rail at all. For freight destined for Central Florida, the longer drayage distance from Jacksonville often erases any portside savings. There's also less density of short-term and project-focused warehousing compared to Tampa and Miami, which reduces flexibility when plans change. Jacksonville is operationally consistent but geographically specific. Products needing rail service or shipping across the southeastern United States are the most likely to be a good fit for Jacksonville. If you want a simple way to think about all of this, here is the practical shortcut for when to ship to these 3 ports. If your freight is moving into Central Florida and requires short-term handling or flexibility, Tampa often makes the most sense. If you are moving high volume, repeat retail freight with tight delivery windows, Miami may be the best fit. If you are distributing across the Southeast with consistent and predictable flows, Jacksonville is worth serious consideration. The key thing to understand is that the cheapest ocean rate is usually the smallest variable in the total cost equation. Warehouse access, labor pricing, and delay tolerance determine the real outcome. The wrong port amplifies mistakes. The right port cushions any mistakes. Before choosing a port, there are 4 questions every shipper should be able to answer clearly. First, where does this freight actually need to go? Second, is this repeat volume or a one-off shipment? Third, is warehousing secured before the container arrives? And last, how much delay can the operation realistically absorb if things go sideways with the shipment? When those answers are unclear, port selection becomes a gamble instead of a strategy. This is not a conversation about good ports versus bad ports. It is a conversation about alignment. Most logistics failures do not start at the port. They start in the handoff between the port, the trucks, and the warehouses. If you are moving freight through Tampa and want fewer surprises, that is exactly the experience warehousing, etc. delivers to our customers. Contact our team for a Tampa warehousing quote at the link in the video description. Whether you are shipping to Tampa or another port, remember to pick the port that fits your operation, not the one with the lowest headline rate.